In March 2021, an article in the Columbus Dispatch identified potential criminal activities by executives at the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium. A subsequent forensic audit commissioned by the zoo uncovered about $600,000 in disputed transactions. Like other tips reviewed by the Auditor of State Special Investigations Unit, the information prompted a full-scale investigation by fraud investigators and state auditors, who identified many more crimes committed by zoo officials.
We then took that as sort of a lead and conducted our own audit. That was just the tip of the iceberg. We found so much more fraud, so much more theft.
In the end, SIU, working alongside lead prosecutors from the Ohio Attorney General's office, secured evidence that led to the convictions of 5 people involved.
There were over 100 subpoenas, there were over 100 interviews conducted. This happened over a period of years, and it was ultimately over $2.2 million that we uncovered.
Ohio's public officials are required to report suspected fraud, waste, and abuse of public resources. SIU investigators receive hundreds of tips each year of potential wrongdoing by elected officials or public employees. Each tip is reviewed, and many lead to investigations by SIU and others in the Auditor of State's office to determine if crimes have been committed, and if so, whether restitution is in order. In the case of the Columbus Zoo, SIU first had to confirm that zoo executives were using resources for their own benefit.
The subpoena responses were very important in this case too, because it allowed us to see what was purchased, when, who spent what money and on what, and who was with them. We reviewed thousands of receipts that were provided by the zoo that were all fraudulent, where these zoo executives would claim that they were out with donors or out with board members, but in fact it was really just food and alcohol for themselves, their friends, their neighbors, and their family.
There was the CEO, Tom Stolf. He was the boss. There was the CFO, Greg Bell, and he signed off on credit card forms, he signed off on invoices, he enabled the scheme and participated himself. The big question we had was, what was being authorized, what wasn't authorized by the board. And another question we had is trying to sort out and uncover for specific events. There were concerts, there were sporting events where the suspects were attending on the zoo's dime. Which ones were personal, which ones were business? As we conducted the investigation, we determined basically all of it was personal.
The executives bought prime seats at sporting and other events. They paid for special access and seating at the Dublin Irish Festival and for vehicles for their own use, even an antique safe.
There was definitely more than office purchases made for this. We saw there was a number of personal purchases for this. Some of the more extravagant ones we saw was that Greg Bell bought an antique safe for his son. We saw a rental property purchased by Tom Stolf for his family to use on their family's spring break. Not only one, but there were 2 rental properties, so they could have one on the inland and one on the actual beach.
2 particular country clubs in Delaware County. We had zoo executives that were purchasing private tennis lessons, personal training, poolside cocktails, food for their children. They all had purchasing power just by using their country club ID. Things that were absolutely not zoo related, not zoo business in any way.
The scheme was, let's claim this is promotional support. We're entertaining vendors of the zoo, we're entertaining donors of the zoo. None of that was true. The philanthropy department didn't even know about this. It was kept hidden from the board, it was kept hidden from other people at the zoo. These individuals basically spent their days at the zoo planning their fun. That was going to happen in the evening. And then they would spend every evening going to concerts, sporting events, entertaining friends and family, all on the zoo's dime.
Ultimately, 5 Columbus Zoo officials, Chief Executive Officer Tom Stolf, Chief Financial Officer Greg Bell, Director of Purchasing Tracy Murnane, Director of Marketing Pete Fingerhut, and Grant Bell, a former purchasing assistant.
These crimes were committed, we're getting restitution, the individuals are paying for it, they're going to prison. But what they did can never be undone. And so it's really important, whether it's a governmental entity or a charity or what have you, for individuals that know something's going on to report it.